Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and WNST.net. We're live on Radio Row, all of it brought to you by our friends at LifeBridge Health Sports Medicine Institute in Foundry Row, letting the docs take care of you the way they treat the pros. Make sure you check them out. This guy is one of the pros. He's the Showtime president and of all things sports. And, I tell you what, boxing and pay cable television all of my lifetime has been there, and you're still putting the fights on. I know what a boxing fan you are. Steven Espinosa joining us here from Showtime, and you got a fight on February 9th, and Baltimore still, all these years later, producing fighters that are pay-per-view and on your channel and everywhere in Gervonta Davis. Still out there doing it.
Yeah, Tank is one of my favorite young fighters in the sport, and I see a lot of fighters, and I don't say that very often, but he is – I mean, your city's fallen in love with him. Baltimore loves him. He's a great kid and more exciting, than just about any young fighter out there. He's just really you don't see that kind of sort of killer in the ring and sort of nice, humble guy outside the ring.
Boxing, I don't want to say making a comeback, because for guys like you'd say it never went anywhere or whatever. I think when MMA started to swoop in, through the turn of the century, over a decade or a dozen years, we were 5 years ago saying, what happened to boxing? Right. And, meanwhile, Canelo and, just people walking around here. Boxers are on Radio Row. Mayweather's at – There's more, I think, juice for the fighters themselves than maybe there was 5, 7, 8 years ago, when maybe even the Russian fighters were more dominant and it wasn't on the American tongue.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. Certainly in the heavyweight division, what we saw was, the reality is any fighter who might have been a heavyweight champion now, that kid at age 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
He's a tight end.
That's right. And
or a basketball player or a football player.
Muhammad Ali would probably be a running back or a linebacker today, or put it a different way. If the NFL wasn't going as big as it was, if we're looking at the salaries the way they were in the 70s and early 80s, then a guy like Michael Strahan is probably heavyweight champion of the world. If he's not pulled away by the NFL, if that didn't exist, then you can see him. His dad was a boxer. He loves boxing. He's got the physical skills and the personality. That's where the heavyweights went. So when we get like a guy like Deontay Wilder, it's pretty exciting for boxing fans to say, look, we have an American heavyweight champion. We have young kids that are exciting like Gervonta Davis. And we've got new networks in it. Fox is back in it. On a monthly basis. ESPN is super committed to it.
You don't want to be the only one.
Correct.
In an industry. In any industry. Yeah. Everybody wants exclusivity, and everybody, all to myself, mine.
It's not good for the
sport.
It
hasn't been good for hockey. It hasn't been good for a lot of niche sports, I think, right?
Right. And in the NFL, if you look at their business model, they've done it perfectly. They sort of sprinkle a bunch of NFL content on a variety of different networks, and including ours, including HBO,
including Yahoo and Twitter and web-based companies.
And so they're perfectly content with sort of having everybody be invested, everybody being part of the NFL show, and then at this type of year, everyone's building toward one game.
Why is Showtime still in the boxing business? Because I'm sure there was somebody in a suit and a bean counter that came somewhere and said, "Come on, man, let's make TV show. Let's do something else. Let's buy MMA. Let's do something else." Where has that been over the last decade for you, Steve?
Well, I think the key thing about boxing is it's something that we can, in a sense, own. Not literally own, but we're not going to get Tom Brady or Peyton Manning or Dak Prescott on an exclusive basis to Showtime. We're not going to get Rafael Nadal, Roger Federer exclusive. We can get Floyd Mayweather exclusive. So we can be at the highest level of the sport, in boxing. And I think we do have an advantage. Fox is doing some great audiences, but it is a different experience watching with commercials than it is sort of staying engaged in the fight. I love being able to go into the corner in that minute between rounds and not have to go to commercial, because you just get a different experience.
I don't think there's any question about that. From a broadcast standpoint, that's what we've come to expect from all the fights in the 80s. I mean, even the closed circuit fights in the 70s.
Right.
It was always you're all in, and we'll give a sponsorship to the beer and have the ring cart girl come through. But the whole, even in the Rocky in the movie,
right? Exactly.
Cut
me, Mick.
Cut me, Mick. You got to go into the corner, right?
Right. And so that's one advantage that we have, and there's plenty of talent to go around. Fox has some great fights. ESPN does as well. But we know, the big fights are going to end up in Showtime. That's what we're known for. And that's what we're going to continue to be in the market.
One of the biggest boxing promoters and forecasters here into the future. For you, with where the fights are and where to put these fights and what nights, Gervonta Davis fights on February 9th. It's interesting to me that people want to stay away from Super Bowl Sunday or any of these. But it gets crowded.
Yes.
I mean, and I see this where the NBA and the NHL can get swallowed up in a week like this, where college football and all these bowl games, and they get swallowed up through the holidays. Boxing has to pick its spot, and I don't know if Kentucky Derby night's the right night, or Preakness night's the right night, or NFL draft, or the NBA final. I mean, it's a crowded schedule for everyone, right?
Well, and it's gotten a lot more crowded even recently, because if you look at the fall, it used to be, if we went back 5 years, you had, one primetime college football game. Now, ABC, Fox, NBC are usually doing primetime college football every Saturday, September, October, November.
Look, Monday Night Football's gone, as we guys our age
right,
know.
Exactly. It's an afterthought.
But that was 18 Monday nights gone, over with, number one ratings, program Murphy Brown and go home. Right, literally.
And we used to have, boxing and MMA used to have Saturday night pretty much to themselves. But then guys woke up and said, well, why aren't we doing a big college football game on ABC? Why are we not doing NBA on ABC? And so it is more competitive, and I think that's why boxing and UFC have really had to step up their game to compete with where they ordinarily had or used to have a sort of a clean slate to work on.
Showtime in sports. Some other thoughts about things you do get involved in. I know it's like Inside the NFL and various things, but what is attractive? I don't understand the model as much as maybe 40 years ago for what you do and people in your service. When I flip through my television and there's 800 channels of God knows what, right?
It is tough, and I think our approach is designed exactly to address that. We're trying to do things that we believe others are not. So, for example, we had a multi-part documentary called "Shut Up and Dribble" that LeBron exec produced. So when everyone else is sort of looking and saying, look, let's separate out sports from politics, we wanted to, actually put them back together.
Oh, but they're not separate.
You can't. You never can. And that was the whole point of the doc.
Stick to sports stuff. That gets two middle fingers from me every time. No. That's just not where we are.
I mean, if you look at going back to Bill Bradley and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Oscar Robertson, there's always been
all the way back to Colin Kaepernick. All the way back to him.
Right.
Yes.
And so we started developing that doc, and it was a little bit more basketball focused in pop culture.
Sure.
And then the whole thing between Trump and LeBron happened, and they're going back and forth. And we said, okay, this is too perfect. We need to pivot and switch and address this. So I think we're looking at doing things a little bit more provocative, a little bit edgier than where other places are going. Right now, in March, we're going to have a 4-part documentary on sports gambling. So we've embedded this entire NFL season from game 1 through the Super Bowl with Vegas odds makers, with legit bookies, with illegal bookies, with professional gamblers.
Illegal bookies?
There are some, believe it or not, still. And yeah, there might be some bets on the game on Sunday a little bit, here or there.
They're all legal now, and they're going to be run through the office of Roger Goodell at a 5% vig.
So now we're looking at
a
documentary. Yeah.
For you, Roger, 6.
So there's a lot of great stories out there, and looking at sports gambling, the characters are there, and what's no one really knows what's going to happen. I mean, are you going to one day be able to place a bet on the concourse at the stadium?
I'm fascinated by it. I mean, every time I bring a handicapper by, whatever, said this thing, the handicappers used to be the little boxes in the USA Today and the tout sheets, and I said now the league's getting its piece. We are in a different place, and especially when I look up and see the Rams logo there instead of the Saints, and I say to myself, the league's responsible for that, and now the league's oh boy, here comes the government, and I just see this is a very sticky situation in our culture, given how prevalent gambling is and how we've all come in contact with a fight being thrown, or we watch Pulp Fiction, or, Bubba Smith saying Super Bowl III was thrown, for crying out loud.
Right.
I just think that's a different place for all of these leagues to be in. It's bad enough they stand in judge and jury of what is pass interference, but when there's hundreds of millions of dollars at stake that they have a piece of, I think we're in uncharted waters moving forward here.
And I don't believe that we really know how big the demand is yet. I mean, because
bigger than I think it is, because I'm not a gambler.
It's bigger than I think any of
It's
us
not my
think
vice,
is.
but yeah.
But I live in New York City, and New Jersey is one of the first states to have it. So if you look at the data that comes out of New Jersey, and all you have to do literally is you get an app, you drive over the New Jersey state line, your app registers your location, and then you can bet. So you don't have to live there. Your credit card doesn't have to be there.
I just remember, when everything got legal, it was like blink, the press conference tomorrow morning, bet the Yankees here on Monday.
Yeah,
Boom.
that's right.
Yeah, literally. And it did not take long. I mean, the Sharps had this all figured out.
And when you look at sort of DraftKings, and they put out some data on this, a large chunk of their activity is right along the border of the state. I mean, people are just driving over the state line, putting in a bet.
Buying the beer, buying the fireworks, buying the weed, whatever the thing is across the border.
Right.
You're going to bring it back.
Sports gambling, too. So you're there long enough for your phone
I used to have to drive to Shrewsbury to buy a lotto ticket back in the day. But, I mean.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely. No, I grew up in Texas. You couldn't buy beer on Sunday. So,
right, there you go.
Right.
Go across the border to New Orleans. It's 18.
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
Yeah, absolutely. Stephen Espinosa is here from Showtime. I want to get this right. You are the president of Sports and Event, right? Okay.
Correct.
Absolutely. So you're the guy that can make me the Bill Maher Showtime.
You absolutely, and we've been looking for that. Like absolutely, like it's the Bill Maher, John Oliver.
How's my hair?
You've got a face for TV. A lot of these guys have a face for radio. You've got a face for TV. You can pull it off.
We could play from my Venezuelan background.
Okay,
or something.
there we
We'll
go.
do something like that.
Yep.
The fight is February 9th. It's a few more things. Promote Showtime for us this year. You guys have done hockey. You've done all sorts of things in the sports space.
Yeah, we have. We had a college football series where we spent one season with a full season with a team all throughout the year. We've done a hockey series. Really what our focus is probably in the near future is documentaries. We've got that sports gambling documentary. We've got another, I think, fascinating documentary that comes out of Texas, and it's a little bit. There was a documentary we won the Emmy with last year called Disgraced, which was about Baylor basketball. Is from the same filmmaker in this child molestation case, which is beyond what you could ever believe happened.
We're hearing more and more of stories that beyond anything we can believe, and now all of a sudden we start to believe anything's possible. Really, literally.
Yeah, and this is one where you really, it's an 18-year-old kid, football star, dating the cheerleader, the perfect life, is accused of child molestation, and then things get weirder from there. The DA goes to jail. There's questions about evidence. There's another suspect. It's one of the strangest sort of sports/crime stories that we've ever done.
You're a storyteller. Literally. I mean, I've only met you twice. I sit here, and this is the second time we've actually sat and talked. But you're looking for a narrative. I mean, literally, right?
I mean, and that's
every documentary. That's what sucks us into every Hard Knocks. Anything we've ever watched that's sports related. Give me the storyline. That's what the Olympics is, right?
Or fights.
I gotta care about you, right?
When you had Wilder Fury, you had Fury coming back from alcoholism and losing 200 pounds in 6 months. And Deontay Wilder, I mean, you had two big personalities. It's the only reason anybody cares about any sport is what's the backstory, what's the history, what's the story behind the rivalry. Why do I care? Why am I emotionally invested?
Great to have you on, man. Stephen Espinosa from Showtime joining us here. We're on Radio Row. It's all brought to you by our friends at Strategic Factory. They create your masterpiece. Hats like this, jackets like this, stuff that makes you look good and brands your company. Also brought to you by Royal Farms. Real fresh, real fast. Luke and I are here. We're mixing and mingling with all sorts of folks from TV networks and celebs and football players. We're going to get some rock stars around here. We're going to get some more professional wrestlers around here, if not wrestling managers for Luke. I am Nestor. He's Luke. We are WNST.net. AM 1570 at WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.